It's a wild world out there, but some worlds are even wilder. Hi, my name is Tyler Hapney, and you're listening to Dungeons and Dystopias. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Dungeons and Dystopias. I am your host and game master, Tyler Hapney. I have run hundreds of games of Cyberpunk Red and Dungeons and Dragons, and this podcast is a way for me to reconcile my thoughts on both of those systems. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about Cyberpunk, but I figured we'd kind of mix it up a little bit and talk more about the video game rather than we would talk about the tabletop today, because the story of the video game and kind of how we go from tabletop to our modern night city is to me it is an interesting little story. So I think we should just go through some of the things that have kind of happened to lead up to 2077 and kind of how that differs from Cyberpunk Red in its time period of 2045. Obviously, Cyberpunk 2077 is something like 30 years ahead of Cyberpunk Red. So there's a lot that happens in the meantime. Like, for instance, during the time of Cyberpunk Red, there is no such thing as the Black Wall. That doesn't exist. It's maybe being worked on at the moment. They're figuring it out, and they're going to have the Black Wall eventually. But as it stands right now, during the time of the Red, there is no Black Wall at all. The net is very much still kind of a very dangerous place. The old net is still flooded with rabbits. I mean, it's kind of the same thing in 2077, but they're able to at least sequester off a little bit for their purposes. But yeah, we're just gonna kind of go over what happened. Really, honestly, that's just kind of my goal for today, is to think about how we got from the time of the Red to the time of the video game and the Edge Runners series. And I think a lot of that does start with the Black Wall. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about our sort of timeline here. So the time of the Red, 2045, there's a lot going on. Things aren't so great. The city has been bombed. There's a lot of economic troubles. It's hard to get anything shipped to anywhere because the oceans are just covered in sea mines being spread around by rabbits. It's really a bad time in general. And I mean, there's a lot of radiation, a lot of death, really just a lot of bad stuff. And for that instance, at that point, and I mean, I think we can from here on out consider Cyberpunk as a post-apocalyptic universe, because really, this is an apocalypse. I mean, it's a kind of apocalypse if you think about it. I mean, you got food shortages. There's a huge bomb. Everything's radioactive. Nobody can get anything. It's the same kind of circumstance you would find yourself in if a real city got bombed in that way. There would probably be a huge economic downturn, and it would almost feel like an apocalypse, especially if that city going down for whatever reason also took down the World Wide Web. That'd be huge. That'd be catastrophic. And yet that is what happened in the 2020s to set up Cyberpunk Red. So, that is to say, the time of the Red is essentially a post-apocalyptic wasteland of Night City. I mean, think about it. The middle of the city's a crater. City center is still completely ruined as of the time of the Red. There's an entire section of the city you cannot enter because it is so radioactive you will die quickly if you go. Yeah, that's post-apocalyptic. So how did we fix that? Well, through a lot of hard work and elbow grease, primarily. It is important to note that the Aldecaldos are helping with the reconstruction of Night City as of the time of the Red, and a lot of nomad clans are helping out as well. Edge Runners are also huge place of support during the time of the Red. And honestly, a lot of people treat Edge Runners more like someone who needs to get a job done. Someone to do the jobs that corporations no longer can because they don't have either the right power or, maybe not the right people, whatever. But right now, Time of the Red is the Edge Runner's time. So, that all changes, I would say, when the Black Wall goes up. And for me, that's pretty soon after the Time of the Red. I'm almost positive they've almost confirmed that it goes up sometime in like the 2050s. And after that happens, one company that is super important to the Time of the Red that we do not see in 2077 is Ziggurat. They go down. We don't know why, but they had all their files seized by Netwatch, and they just vanished overnight. So we can only assume that Ziggurat is up to something nefarious with some AIs. That's kind of the I guess the assumption I am making there. So Blackwall goes up, Ziggurat goes down. From here on out, the Netwatch is now able to sequester a certain part of the net to be safe. It is theorized that Netwatch made a deal with many of the rogue AIs beyond the Blackwall in order to help them with its construction and to make sure that it is maintained. Obviously, by the time of 2077, we do still see some AIs poking at the Blackwall, more in particular Alt. So it leaves sort of a question, how much of the Blackwall was Netwatch responsible for? I don't know. I don't know how much that could honestly, truly, when you think about it, the Blackwall, from what we've learned about it, it could be a complete creation of the AI themselves. We still don't know the nature of the deal Netwatch made or anything like that. So, wow. That's a huge hole right there. And it's obvious that the people in charge of 2077's writing, they have some sort of idea on the AI's sort of role in all of this. But for right now, all we can do is sit back and theorize about what all of these rogue AI might be doing. And it's not like they all work as a hive mind or anything, too. As far as I'm aware, different AI can have completely different goals. So, what AI helped Netwatch set up the Blackwall? How is that AI so powerful that it could set up the Blackwall? Many questions are kind of still left in the air about all of this business, but that is for a later date. For now, we continue on our timeline. Also during the 2050s. Fun fact, did you know the rebuilding of Night City's corporate center began around 2052? That means that as of Cyberpunk Red, they're still 7 years away from even getting started on rebuilding Corporate Plaza. In 2051, a major outbreak of bird flu occurred in Night City, killing 7,000 people, which is, not great, but at the same time, it's not necessarily anything to do anything about. Until, in 2059, guess what? A second major bird flu outbreak hits Night City, killing 10,000 people. So now it's 17,000 people dead because of bird flu within 8 years sort of each other. And that's really, really all it is for the 2050s. It's bird flu, Blackwall, the rebuilding of Corporate Plaza. Through the 2060s, we get Lucius Rhine elected to Night City Council, which obviously, for anyone who's played 2077, Lucius Rhine is a big name. And here's the fun fact. Guess what? Haiti in 2061, getting ahead of myself, a third major bird flu outbreak occurred, this time killing 12,000 people. So for anyone keeping track at home, that's 29,000 dead because of bird flu in Night City, which is, kind of a problem. Now people, I think, are starting to really kind of get sick of all this bird flu flying around. But yes, in 2062, Haiti is officially abandoned, and that is why we see so many Haitian sort of refugees in Pacifica in 2077. Is because in 2062, Haiti gets basically the entire country pretty much gets abandoned. A large portion of its population is now resettled in Night City, Pacifica. And that's why it's basically Little Haiti. which I don't know. I always really like Pacifica. It's a cool place. 2063, Night City has adopted now the Avian Extermination Act, which means, yeah, they're killing all birds. They are killing all birds. So, obviously, you play 2077, you don't see any birds. That's because they killed them all in 2063. Oops. 2065, Rosalind Myers gets elected. Everyone who's played Phantom Pain, not Phantom Pain, Phantom Liberty, excuse me, different franchise, knows very well who Rosalind Myers is. So obviously this is where that character gained power. It is only 12 years before the video game of 2077, but at the same time, someone who's been president for 12 years, I mean, wow, that's 3 terms. Next up, next huge thing in the 2060s. And this is the powder keg that really pushes off the rest of 2077. We're in 2069 now. So, I mean, we're only so far away from 2077, 8 years by this point, but we get the Unification War, and I would really like to do an episode specifically on the Unification War. But basically, this was President Myers wanting to get all the free states and all the other things, because the U.S. and the Cyberpunk universe has been broken up into multiple separate factions. She's trying to get them all unified. And of course, she's doing so through violence and intimidation and capturing and invasion and other means. So yes, the Unification War begins in 2069. And this is during this time, we see cities like Sacramento bombed. We see, Night City, that whole, Militech comes into Night City and starts doing stuff. And there's just a lot going on at this point. At this area, in the same month, in June, the Unification War ended because Arasaka was requested to help Night City by Councilman Lucius Rhine. So Arasaka comes in to Night City with a huge aircraft carrier. And basically, Militech's like, no, actually, we don't want another conflict with Arasaka. So the war ends. They signed a treaty. And Night City is essentially gained independence. Of course, now working very close in hand with Arasaka, which kind of brings back that sort of Cyberpunk 2020 feel, where Arasaka is kind of the big guy at top. Well, that's kind of a nice return to form here. It only took 50-something years, but we are here now. From here on out, Arasaka is all over Night City, and they absolutely help just surge the rebuilding of the Night City area over the next few years. And then, obviously, that brings us right on up through the 2070s as everything is worked on. We get to learn about David Martinez through the 2076 year. And finally, that brings us right into 2077, where we awaken as V and, go off and do whatever it is, whatever ending you think is canon, whatever. But, I mean, yeah, there is a bit of a timeline there kind of leading up to 2077, and a lot of it is, really honestly, just to summarize it all, it's honestly just Arasaka coming in and reclaiming their position of power because of I would say, a pretty massive mistake on behalf of Militech and this Unification War, which, as I understand it, only caused more damage than it ever did repair, which, of course, is a huge theme of the Cyberpunk universe. So, at the end of the day, Night City's trajectory kind of makes sense. All right, let's talk a little bit about our metaphorical monster of the week. We're going to be going in a little bit on some of these newer Cyberpunk companies. Trent, I want something... You know what? No, not a company. We're going to talk about a character from 2077 that I don't think many people really talk about. And by many people, I mean, I'm sure some do, but I want to talk about Weldon Holt. Weldon Holt is the deputy mayor Night City during sort of the first half of Cyberpunk 2077. Not even the first half. It's like the first third of 2077. And there's a whole thing about Weldon Holt going on. He is kind of the central figure around this investigation quest line in which you are trying to find out who assassinates Mayor of Night City, Lucius Rhine, which we have, of course, mentioned multiple times throughout this timeline video. So, yes, if you didn't know, spoiler alert, Lucius Rhine gets assassinated in a very mysterious way, and it's pretty quickly covered up in the media and in the news. So, whoever did it had to have had some sort of power. And now the question is, and the question the game pushes you towards, is whether or not Weldon Holt was at all responsible or even involved in the death of Lucius Rhine. And that is where our metaphorical monster thing kind of kicks off here, because, well, there's a lot going on with Weldon Holt. And it's pretty obvious, I'd say, that he had at least some sort of involvement. However, I do struggle to think on whether or not he could be the mastermind behind the assassination of Lucius Rhine, because the way it happened, Lucius went to an invite-only club called the Red Queen's Race, in which our buddy Lucius Rhine decided to partake in a wonderful night of brain dances. Well, it turns out his brain dance viewer had been modified with a terrible virus that essentially fried the guy's brain the moment he put it on and turned it on. Of course, we as V also get the opportunity to do so, and it works almost exactly as you predict. Only we managed to make it out alive, with Johnny Silverhand, kind of calling us a moron, but I'd say it was worth it. we got to learn some stuff. But yeah, Weldon Holt, from here on out, we get a lot of clips and sort of hints that Weldon Holt knew about this and is helping cover it up. Because Holt comes in after the staff of the club find him, and Holt sends in a detective to secure the corpse and essentially cover the whole incident up, supposedly to preserve Ryan's reputation. But, I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, it could very well be a completely different reason that he decided to cover up the murder of his old boss. Fun fact, afterwards he decides to hire the animals to then wreck up the club to make it look like, they might have done something, but, well, at that point V arrives and kind of uncovers everything, figures it out, and that's all because of the animals, obviously. So, the real question here to dwell on, is Weldon Holt responsible for the death of Lucius Rhine? As the game does present you that option many different times, and it almost seems like it's the easy way to go. I mean, he's the most obvious suspect. He helped with the cover-up. Why wouldn't it be him? Well, consider we don't actually have any evidence that it's him. None whatsoever. We've got a hunch. That's pretty much about it. But, we just talked about earlier in this episode, so many AIs are doing so many things. And we learn later on in that quest line that there are AIs heavily involved in the mayoral race of Night City. They are controlling Jefferson Peralez and his wife through mysterious means, most likely through Night Corp of all places. And we don't know what this is. We don't know what any of this means. Mr. Blue Eyes, how is this connected to Weldon Holt? Is maybe Holt receiving orders from the AI? Was the AI responsible for the death of Lucius Rhine so they could get him out of the way so that they can stall Peralez? There's a lot of interesting questions that the game itself does never give us an opportunity to even ask. So that's what we're doing here. What is going on with Weldon Holt? The guy is, I don't know, he's shady. He does not wind up winning the mayoral position in Night City. I believe that does wind up going to Peralez. But, if we happen to, if we, well, not if, but when we do get a Cyberpunk sequel, I would like to at least hopefully learn a little bit more about Weldon Holt and maybe a little bit more about these AIs. And I don't know. I mean, even if it's just like a small side quest or a data log, a bunch of text somewhere, I just want to know what the hell is going on here because it's Cyberpunk and I think these plot lines are just so cool and so neat. But what do you guys think? Who do you think took out Lucius Rhyme? I'm still not positive myself, but I know for a fact it probably was not actually Weldon Holt, because it just doesn't make sense. How would he have the pool to do that? He's not even the full mayor. I don't know, but just some things to consider. As for now, though, we are going to have to end the episode. Thank you so much for listening to this timeline sort of run through of the Cyberpunk universe. Just a small, little, tiny snippet, of course, but still, I mean, there's a large timeline, big tapestry here. I've been Tyler Habney. This has been Dungeons and Dystopias. Thank you so much for listening. Please come back next week where we talk a little bit more about Dungeons and Dragons. Thank you so much.